This is my submission to the 2020 Game Makers Toolkit Game Jam with the theme of Out of Control. So I started brainstorming some ideas with my girlfriend in the car ride home from Starbucks, and we came up with a pretty solid idea. So the idea for this game was we were going to kind of simulate the character losing control of their mind. And the way we were going to achieve this was by kind of distorting the player's field of view and the audio for the game. So what I'm doing here is creating a sprite sheet for the game. Basically just a basic sprite where the player will walk forwards, backwards, left, and right. Didn't really add any animations for the player shooting, but if I go back and change things to the game, that's definitely something that I want to do. What I'm going to start doing here in a second is add some shading. Now the shading is kind of what makes the player not look super plain. Really adds extra detail, and I think it turned out nicely. And what I'm going through here is going back to a reference forum for how to do pixel perfect art in Unity. And by pixel perfect, I mean just basically there's no stuttering or lines appearing within the game. It's really important to do this because it can kind of take you out of the experience if you're constantly seeing these black lines show up within your game. So I found it really important just to have this reference up. Now, one thing that I would definitely change if I had more time would be to change the color palette for the character. That's just because, as you'll see later, the character's color palette and the color palette for the background kind of blend together. So if I had more time to change this, I definitely would. But since I was kind of on a time crunch when I realized this, I really didn't want to go back and have to redo all the art. Now, what you're listening to now is original music for the game, and I think this music is what really brings the game together. It really ties everything together and really sets the theme for the game. A lot of the comments that I've gotten on the game so far have basically been praising the music, and the music was all done by my little brother Joe, who's fantastic at music design. And what I'm doing right here is looking at a reference image for what a side view of a pixelated character will look like. It's basically because I know nothing about art. This is all basically programmer art, as it's called. So I just went ahead and looked up this reference image so I could see basically how to form the face to look sideways and form the body to move sideways. And as you'll see here in a second, I found it kind of difficult to animate the player walking sideways, especially with his legs, since I was basically doing just a stick figure from the bottom half. So what I ended up doing was just shading the bottom part of the legs on movement and moving the arms forwards and sideways. Now this would kind of simulate the arms moving back and forth and the legs going up and down. So I went ahead and started programming. Now I've already done most of the programming for the player's movement and jumping and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing here now is creating a script for the enemy. Now what I was going to do here is create an enemy kind of like the jumping enemies in Zelda, which just hop around attacking the player. And I was going to achieve this by having the jump height variable, which would control the y-axis or the vertical movement of the enemy, and then a hop distance variable, which would control the x-axis or the horizontal movement of the enemy, and just basically have it randomly hopping around towards the player. This really didn't end up the way I wanted it to work out, so I kind of scrapped the idea and just went with a basic enemy controller where the enemy will follow the player around. So if I could go back and change this, I definitely would and implement this into the game. I just really didn't have enough time to. So this right here is just kind of showing off the enemy following the player around. What I'm going to do here in a second is add some particle effects for when the enemy gets destroyed. It took me a while to fine-tune this the way I exactly wanted it to look. I was kind of fiddling around with different variables within the particle effects system, like changing the color, the size over time, and how the emission shape was. but I think I finally came to something that looks pretty nice. I also went ahead and added some particle effects for when a player gets killed, and that's what you're seeing here right now with the red splatter. It looks a little violent actually because it's supposed to simulate blood, so I don't know if that really goes with the theme of the game because the game is supposed to be more trippy than it is violent, but I think it actually turned out quite nicely. So what you're seeing here now is basically the full gameplay. The player goes around and shoots these little pills at the monsters and destroys them, and the player is going around searching for these larger pills which will restore normalcy to the game, as it's called. And by normalcy, you'll see what I mean here in a second. It'll basically restore the field of view and the music for the game. So I added some post-processing effects and a little bar that shows and displays what sanity level you're at. And right now you're at full sanity, so the music for the game is normal and the color overlay is also normal. But you'll see here in a second that the music will change, the bar will go down, and there will be a different color overlay, supposed to simulate the character going slightly insane. So here it is. You can hear that the music has changed. It's pretty trippy, and I really do like the way the music turned out. And here's the game with the title menus and everything all put together. You can see there's a link to my YouTube channel. There's also credits, which kind of display who did what with the game. Again, my little brother Joe did the music, and my girlfriend Ellie helped me out with game design. So this is kind of what the game looks like in full. The player just goes around searching for these pills, trying to restore normalcy to the game. So I'll shut up for a second and just kind of show off the music and the visuals for the game. So, this is kind of how my submission turned out for the Game Maker's Toolkit 2020 Jam. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more devlogs. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you.